Thank you so much for listening. The name of my talk is 0 to 100 Real Quick, inspired by the Drake lyric. And, and the reason why I decided to come up with this talk is because about a year ago, I actually didn't work at Twilio. I've only been working here for 7 months. And I remember sitting down next to one of my now colleagues at Twilio and telling her that there's this amazing job called a Developer Evangelist at Twilio, and I don't think I can make it. I don't know if I'm good enough. And they said apply, because even though you apply, you may not think you have the skills. You have enough skills to get started, and you can improve as you go. So my name is Nathaniel. You can refer to me as he, him. And you can find me online at Instagram, Twitter, and GitHub at Chatterboxcoder in the bottom left. And if you've already come to the Twilio table, you will know why I'm called Chatterboxcoder. So, like I said, I was really nervous, and then I finally got my job at my dream company, the job that I didn't think I was good enough for. But I really wanted to be good. I wanted to become one of the best, and I wanted to almost prove to Twilio that they didn't make a mistake in hiring me. And it made me do a lot of research. I looked for talks, I looked for books, and all of these different resources to try and figure out how I can make a big impact when I started. And this talk is just an amalgamation, me bringing all of those different resources that I got together. And one of the resources that I got, one of my favorite ones, was a book called The First 90 Days by Michael D. Watkins. And I love this quote. It says, "Every successful career is a series of successful assignments, and every successful assignment is launched with a successful transition." Now, some of you may not have your first job yet, or maybe you've just started, or maybe you've been working in tech for a couple of years now. This talk hopefully will still be useful to you because your career is made up of many transitions. And this talk will go through some of the things that can help you make an impact every time you step into a new role or position. And I'm going to be using my timeline, the timeline that I experienced during my first 100 days at Twilio. And this is very personal to me and my experience. And what you may notice is as I talk, you'll begin to think, well, I didn't experience this at that stage, or I experienced this much more early. And that's fine. Every one of your journeys are totally different. But I think there are some phrases that remain the same across our different timelines. And that is observing, understanding, and creating. And I'm going to talk about how these 3 phases really helped me maximize my impact and get up to speed when I started working at Twilio. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Day 0, you got the job. I finally got the letter and I could tweet about it online. And you might feel something like this. So I was dancing, I was celebrating. But more than just those feelings, there are many other feelings that may be going through your head at this point in time. So the obvious one is excitement. You feel good. This feels good. You've earned it. Make sure you be proud of yourself. You deserve it. You might also feel a bit nervous, but don't doubt yourself. You deserve to be there. Last year, actually, at You Got This, there was an amazing talk about imposter syndrome by Joe Franchetti. And one of my favorite things from that talk was when she said that having imposter syndrome is kind of counterintuitive. Because do you really believe that you are smart enough to trick all of these very smart people into thinking that you are smarter than you actually are? It gets a bit confusing. But don't doubt yourself. You deserve to be there. And also support. Now, I remember when I got my job at Twilio, and I tweeted and I tagged Twilio in it. And the CEO of Twilio, actually, I think he liked or commented or retweeted or something. And immediately, my follow account just had a nice little bump. My phone wouldn't stop beeping. I felt really good. But it's more than just Twitter. All of the people who supported you on your journey, your colleagues in your boot camp, or maybe the fellow students in your university, or maybe your friends at the meetup, or the mentor that has been helping you learn to code. All of those people have been following you and want to succeed. Make sure you share your success with them. But we reach day 1, the first day when you start. And I will tell you, at my office, it's almost exactly like this. So many new names to remember. We have cake, and cake every time new starters come, and I love it. It's amazing. But there's so many new names to remember, so many new people to meet. But sometimes being new can really suck. And I'm going to talk about this. I listened to a talk. It was also called The First 90 Days. And it was by a gentleman called Arnon Kraft. Now, Arnon Kraft had an amazing opportunity. He lives in Tel Aviv, but he was going to move to the United States for a new job. He was going to live in a big house in a nice neighborhood. Him and his wife were very excited. But his 7-year-old son wasn't so excited. His 7-year-old son was a bit annoyed that they had to move. And he sat down and tried to speak to his son to really get to the bottom of his son's motivations. And his son kind of said a couple of different things, and Anand boiled this down into 3 points. That his son was saying that everybody knows who I am here. I have friends. I know so many people. And I might lose those relationships when I move to the United States. And these were not his actual words, but he said, I know how to be successful. That means he knows where to give in his homework. He knows which teachers are really strict and also which teachers he can get away with talking a little bit at the back of the class in. And most importantly, to his 7-year-old son at the time, he knew what's cool. He knew that wearing his hair long is cool. He knows what trainers are in style at the minute. And he was really worried that these things, he won't be able to take them with him when he went to the United States. And it might feel like this is the typical thinking of a 7-year-old, but I think we, even as adults, we still feel the same things. We just come up with different words for them. And Arnon Kraft came up with some words for these. He spoke about reputation. You have built a reputation wherever you've come from. People at your university may know that you're a good coder, or people at your boot camp or the mentor who's been helping you knows about your skills and they know that these are your strengths. And when you go to this new place, it might feel like you may not be able to carry that reputation over with you. And it can sometimes feel intimidating. Also, commitments and purpose. You knew what activities you needed to do and engage in to get you to this point. And sometimes you may be wondering to yourself, in this new position, what activities will I need to do to be successful? And will I be any good at those activities? And sometimes, most importantly to us, culture. Do I feel like I belong here? Do I feel included? Will I get on with the other people in my office? And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the activities that you can engage in to help you answer these intimidating questions almost that you might ask yourself. And some also bad practices that you should avoid to make sure you don't fall in certain traps. So day 7, the first week is down. And for me, this was onboarding. So we got my laptop and I got set up. I understood all of the sort of office basics to get started. And I finally sat down to work. And this is when I began the first of those 3 phases I mentioned earlier, observing. Observation is one of the most crucial steps when you start at a new role. And there may be so many things that were not included in the onboarding training. What is the office culture like? What's the management style like? Who are the key partners, both internally and externally? And most important to me, what are the best office snacks? Making sure I find those early. And you need to go and gather as much information, looking for all of those details in the new role. And while you're doing this, you're also going to need to avoid some transition traps. And these are things that it can be very easy to slip into when you get started, and they often get in the way from you being successful in your new role. Number 1 is sticking exclusively to what you know. Now, you were hired because of what you know, but don't let that stop you from opening yourself to new opportunities. There's going to be so much that you can learn in your new role. And don't just rely on the things that got you there, but also look for opportunities to add new tools to that toolkit. And another thing to avoid is falling prey to the action imperative. Now, I struggle with this. And this was when I started feeling like I needed to be working at 100% on day 1. And it's really important to understand that you will need to have time to spin up to get there, and don't rush into it. Another one is only focusing on learning the technical part of the business. Now, if any of you are active on Twitter, you may have heard of the 10x engineer last year. Learning the overall business model of your company and understanding the business value of your role in that company can sometimes be as or maybe even more important than just your tech skills. All these tech adjacent skills are what allow your technical skills to really shine. So make sure you don't just focus on those technical parts, but you understand how they fit with the company as a whole. So I'll go back through these again, sticking exclusively to what you know, falling prey to the action imperative, and only focusing on learning the technical side of the business. But some good things that you should be practicing is to negotiate success and focus on building a productive working relationship with your new manager. It's great that we've just followed a talk that sort of spoke about the manager's role in that, and make sure you are trying to communicate to build a solid relationship from the get-go. So schedule meetings maybe with your manager and other people in leadership, not just your direct manager, but maybe other people that you may be working with. And another thing to do early is to keep your balance. Being committed to your job is great, however, don't overcommit to an unsustainable goal. It can be very easy, especially with the action imperative, to try and focus only on work and not remember that you also have a life outside of work. So day 30, the first month was down. And for me, this is when I really began to move on to the next phase, which is understanding. Understanding the business that you're working. Remember, like I said before, your technical skills must be paired with an understanding of the business value that they bring. And you take all of those things that you've observed, not just about the way the business works, but about the office culture, the management style, internal and external key partners, and you do the mental maths in your head to come up with the answers. And then you really begin to understand. And there's some more bad behaviors that you should avoid. And overplaying the I'm still new card. So you are new, and your manager and your team know this, and you do not have to be perfect, and you should still ask for help. But the way you should ask for help should be leading into a constructive learning experience, rather than asking people to just do it for you, playing the I'm still new card. I'm still new, I don't know how to do this, can you do it for me? But rather, ask them questions and use it as an opportunity to learn. Over nostalgia. Now, a lot of times, not many of us have it early in our careers, but it can be this thing of back in my day, in my old company, or where I used to work, we used to do it this way. Now, like I said before, you were hired because of all of that knowledge and experience and skills that you bring to the table. But remember to also be open to the things that you can learn from where you are now and maybe integrate them and come up to compromises. And superhero syndrome, and that is where someone overpromises and underdelivers. You can't save everyone. Keep track of the commitments you make. I actually just didn't get in trouble, but someone told me off for this recently because last year at our annual conference, they asked people, what would people like to volunteer for next year? And every time they said a topic, I said, me. And now we're in the run-up, we're getting closer to our conference, and one of my team members messaged me and said, Nathaniel, you should not be doing this many things. Drop some of them. And it was really, really useful to me. I suffered from superhero syndrome. And it's important to keep track of those commitments and don't overpromise and overcommit yourself to all of these different tasks that you may not be able to fulfill. And hide and seek. This is another bad behavior to avoid. And this is, have you ever noticed that person that you met on day one, you shook their hand, you told them your name, and then you never see them again? And then once a year at the all hands, they pop up and you're like, wait, you work here? Now, it's really important to understand that the social networking that you will gain at the different places that you work at is really, really useful to your career. And it's important to not just say hello on the first day and not make an effort to go and interact and engage with all of your colleagues and the people around you. Because those people can often give you bits of advice and bits of learning that can help you really grow in your roles. So I'll go back through them. Bad behaviors are hide and seek, overplaying the I'm still new card, over nostalgia, superhero syndrome, and then hide and seek. But some good practices that you should do is to ask questions. Never be afraid of asking why. Something funny at Twilio is it's an American company, and Americans love acronyms. CIA, FBI, It's just crazy. And oftentimes I'm in meetings and acronyms will be used and I have no idea what they mean. And finally I began to pluck up the courage to put my hand up and say, can you pause there? What does that acronym mean? And what's so funny is that after a while, I noticed that so many other people in the company who've been working there longer than me would say, oh, I didn't know what the acronym meant either. So make sure you ask questions. Never be afraid of asking why. You're not challenging authority by asking why, but you're gaining an understanding so you can take that and have a better knowledge going forward. Also, make sure you use available resources. Now, one of the easiest resources you can use is your manager's time and attention. But also, your company will have education opportunities, maybe internally or externally. Make sure you use all of those resources to gain a great understanding of your company, your job, understanding your role and your technical skills, and all of that together. And day 60, this for me was the third month, and I began to feel confident. I was actually good at this. I'd done a few 5-minute demos and they didn't go as a disaster. And this is when you can really move on to my favorite phase, which is where you create. It's your time to shine. You're ready to take ownership. Now, feel free to revisit observing and understanding if you need to. It's an iterative process. You constantly need to go and observe and understand and then create. And as you continue to create, you'll also have a sense of independence. At Twilio, we represent this in our values. We have one of our values, which is to draw the owl. And it comes from this famous meme that you may recognize. And how to draw an owl, draw some circles, and draw rest of the owl. And what it means is that there is no instruction book that details every single thing you're going to need to do to become successful at your role. All of that understanding and observing that you're doing has given you the tools and everything you need to really just go out and do it. I remember when I showed this to my friend and he said to him it means stop talking about it and just do it. And there's almost an element of sometimes you might end up asking too many questions. I take that back, you can never ask too many questions, but you may expect someone to show you every single step. Feel free and feel confident in your skills, in your decision making, to be creative in your own way. And as you draw the owl, you'll begin to create value and you'll reach something which we call the break-even point. Now, this is a very popular business model, but I've changed this diagram a little bit. I've removed the timeline, which is days after entry, because this is very different to very different people in different situations. If you're in a big company with lots of complex business processes, it may take you a lot longer. Whereas if you're in a small company with maybe one really focused goal, you might get up to speed much more quickly. And I'll go through it. So what happened is your company needed you at some point. And it took time and resources to value you. The amount of money that goes into HR in companies is much more surprising than I thought it was. And they invested in you, and at some point, they brought you on, and they hired you. And at first, they gave you so much value. They give you a salary, they give you training opportunities, and you're consuming all of this value. But as you create, you begin to offset this amount of value that they've invested in you and eventually reach a point where the amount of value that you have created actually offsets and completely pays off all the value that you have consumed. Now, before I move on, don't take this as a monetary goal and do maths and work out, okay, it took them this much money to hire me and to pay me, therefore I need to make this much money for the company. The value that you bring may not come up in the shape that you think it is. You might bring value by improving the office culture or a new way of thinking. But see it as an opportunity for you to create value in your new role, for you to reach that break-even point. And take advantage of all of the value you're consuming, all of the learning opportunities that you have, and use them to create more value. And then we reach day 100. You're in the groove, and you want to keep it 100. You want to keep the momentum going. And this is where I say it's very important to recheck your work-life balance. I really like this GIF. Make sure that you make time for personal reflection outside work. Your personal well-being is a key aspect to your life, and it enables you to succeed just as much as your technical skills. And understanding your circumstances and where you as an individual have come from is crucial to informing the right goals for yourself. And you may find, like I did, that your personal life begins to change with your new job. I was listening to a talk last year and by a colleague called Michelle Glosia, and she described a phenomenon known as a class straddler that I really identified with, and I'm going to talk about it. And a class straddler is someone who grew up in a blue-collar situation and now has a white-collar life. And I identify as a class straddler. Sometimes when I'm with friends that I grew up with, I feel like I don't quite fit in with them anymore. And sometimes I feel overly privileged by the fact that I have free lunch, and I sometimes complain that the lunch isn't what I wanted. It's just a very stark contrast. And oftentimes it can mean that I act really formally in very casual situations, or I forget to ask for help and feel really awkward requesting connections. And I'm especially intimidated by people I perceive as in management or much more successful than me. Now, you may or may not be a class straddler, but what truly matters is understanding how your new job and the experiences that come with it will affect your life. Recognizing how your experiences will shape your understanding of working life will prepare you for some of the encounters that you may interact with along the way. And the next thing is to infinity and beyond. Even I don't know. Now, the first time I gave this I gave this talk, I was 100 days of working at Twilio. I've just gone past 200 days, but he's keeping count. I've just gone past 200 days, and even I don't know what the next step is. But remember that your career is a marathon, not a sprint, but you can ensure a strong start. You can keep going through the cycles of observing, gathering as much information about everything as you can, understanding, never shy away from asking why. And then create. Go and draw the owl. And remember that every successful career is a series of successful assignments. And every successful assignment is launched with a successful transition. This may be you going for your first job, or you've just started your first job, or maybe a new job in a new role at a different company. You can use some of the things I've spoken about in this talk to help you get started. And keep me updated. I'd love to hear about your journeys. And feel free to reach out to me at Chatterbox Coder on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and everything. And thank you so much for listening.